Right. And our audio should be going, and we are on that. Switch my down to chat so I can. Oh, actually, I can end that poll now. There we go. Right. Okay, guys. Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Daddy Chats, and here with me is the legendary Drunk
Legend.
3PO, aka the History of Pirates. Would you like to
Look at
introduce
that.
yourself?
A legend. Look at that. I love it. I don't think I've been called a legend in.
That's
I don't think
that's
I've ever
that's
have,
a
but I
UK thing. Like,
appreciate it.
Legend is one of my favorite like UK nicknames.
Ah, I see. No, that's awesome, man. Thanks for having me. It's not every day that people invite me on their channel to talk something a little different than like Star Wars stuff or whatever. So I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm very grateful for you taking your Sunday afternoon because I time zones are a weird thing. It was I messed up the
Oh,
other
it's
week
not
when
good.
I had Aiden Thornbury on and like I was like, yeah, get on this time. Then he messaged me an hour before I was ready, and I was like, I've messed up considerably.
Oh,
Because
it's all
yeah,
good, man. It's all good. I've had my lunch. I've had my food. I'm ready. So,
let's
you
get
know,
going, and we can
whenever.
we'll dive in. We'll dive in with perhaps my favorite pirate, Grace O'Malley. I saw you did a video on her recently as well,
Oh,
so I thought
Grace. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
I thought
right.
it'd be a good one starting one. So, what was your sort of introduction with Granny Meole, as the Irish call her?
Uh, I was looking up. This was like years ago when I was actually like reading books on that. Is that the female to have a powerful female pirate or a powerful just female in general that just ran clans and different things like that was a very rare thing.
Mm.
As we all know, back in those days, women were not treated too well. In some areas they were, but a lot they were not. They just weren't treated very well. And the fact that this woman, she rose like she just did everything that she just did everything different. She's like, I'm taking charge. Yep, my husband died. All right, I'm in charge now. And then like, she started kind of like an Italian mafia racket with like merchant ships. It's like, yeah, just pay us a little bit of money and we'll protect you. Just things like that. And then hearing like some of her stories of revenge.
Mm.
When people did stuff to her family and how she just went and like slaughtered everyone, women, children, anyone that had that name completely destroyed. Then it's like, wow. I am shocked that there hasn't been like a Hollywood adaptation of Grace O'Malley. And the crazy thing is too, it's like we were talking before the show starts, a lot of these stories and stuff that we hear about her, there's a general there's a general outline of information about what she did, who she was, how she was in charge. But then there's like these other little side stories that people that might not, maybe because they didn't get accredited uh through some history organization or something to be to be fact. But these little side stories of like these little missions that she did while she was in charge are just, to me, that's like so fascinating. Where apparently like there was one where and again, it's just stuff that we read, and I don't know how true it is, but where a person from a clan, another clan, wanted to marry her and merge the two
Mm.
clans together, and she refused. She's like, I don't need no man, I don't need no husband. And when he left in disgrace because he was in charge, he kidnapped one of her smaller children, and then she went on a little like ninja hunt, and went and got her child back, killed the guy, said a statement like, if anybody else tries this was gonna happen to you, and like set a bunch of people on fire. It's like, holy crap, man. Like, it's just like all these little side stories. Um, you know, it's pretty wild. It's Grace O'Malley. Again, I don't know why Hollywood hasn't tapped that. Like, the story is fascinating.
I
If Hollywood is looking for female representation,
it is.
empowerment, strong woman leadership, and then I think what really was fascinating more than anything is that she wasn't dumb. She was well educated. She spoke different languages, and that she was able to have a presence with the queen. you know, and talk to the
Yes.
queen at the time to negotiate her family and things like that.
And most
And
prominently, she refused to bow, and Queen Elizabeth let her get away with it. A woman who
yeah,
could have, on the spot, had her like, okay, no, we're just going to take you out. And then she
yeah.
respected her more, like, for basically saying, I'm your equal.
It's that is something that I think a lot of historians or people that when they read that they don't they might miss something important there because she probably should have been put to death,
Hmm.
you know, or thrown in jail, however it is. She was definitely an enemy. Just the fact that she was there, they could have just easily said, "Well, we got you here. Let's just capture her." But no, man, she stood strong. She negotiated a deal, and she made it out to fight another day.
What I love
So
about that is like Anglo-Irish relations are a very, very like it's not a pretty piece of history, but the fact that Grace O'Malley was able to go to Queen Elizabeth I, one of the most fierce women in
yeah,
history, who I mean, obviously the weather played a good part, but sent Spain packing multiple times. She had she went up to her and then not only managed to get a deal to get her lands back and get the remainder of her family out of an English prison, but the English lord who was in charge of that reason was then kicked out of that bit of Ireland, and so Grace O'Malley just had free reign. And the
yeah.
only thing that annoys me is that obviously you had Elizabeth I, Mary Queen of Scots, and Grace O'Malley, all three redheads, all powerful at the same
I
time,
know.
and Elizabeth met Mary and Grace, but they didn't all meet at once. And I'll be like, that would be a
Yeah.
really cool like. It's so weird that like in the British Isles, three of the most powerful women in British history were all alive at the same time, and they were all redheads.
Oh, that ought to tell you something. That's
What?
probably why Hollywood didn't want to do. They didn't want to. They don't want to give redheads any.
We all know what happens if you. We all know what happens to redheads in Hollywood.
But yeah. So it's just
um,
like it's such a such a powerful story, you know. And she didn't take any prisoners.
yeah.
She didn't, so like one of the stories where was she literally was on a ship and she was giving birth to one of her children,
When Barbary
and the ship
Pirates, wasn't it?
yeah, the ship started being attacked by you know, the enemy. And she's like, "All right, wrap this thing up. I got to go save our people." And she led, you know, she tied that baby up and went out and fought, and they won. They won their battle.
That I love the variations of that story as well, because one of them that I read when I was researching her was that she was firing her gun like a full off like shotgun type thing with one
Yeah,
hand, and the baby in the
in
other,
the
the
other.
newborn baby, and just single handedly taking out these Barbary pirates. And I'm like, part of me feels like this is unrealistic, but the rest of me wants it to be true because it
I
sounds so
know.
cool.
The only thing I could think of was like that baby was probably born deaf if that was the case. If they're like
Yeah.
shooting those guns right now, those things aren't they're pretty loud. Especially for yeah, for a
But yeah,
child, you know, to hear it.
I mean,
But
especially the old sort of gunpowder stuff that would have been available to them then, because that was what because I didn't realize until I looked into Grace O'Malley like how the Barbary slave trade went around Ireland specifically because they
right,
wanted the white women with red hair, and then obviously they went into the Slavic countries for the blonde hair, and
right.
the fact that Grace O'Malley was essentially running around undoing that because it
Yeah,
not necessarily a heroic action. She was pirating the pirates, but like,
right.
but it's an interesting web of how everywhere is interlinked, and it's often forgotten history as well. Like her and Bonny is the other one. And Bonny I learnt of. I'm gonna admit through Assassin's Creed Black Flag as well as Mary Read.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Mary Read's probably my favorite pirate of all time, but that's probably entirely due to
Really,
Black Flag.
Mary Read.
Yeah,
Mary Read over Anne Bonny. Interesting.
if I was, yeah, I love Anne Bonny, but Mary Read's story is so much more complex because like she started off again. You'd think Hollywood loved this one because she started off like dressing as a bloke to fit in
Yeah.
and like reign over them, and her I don't
For
believe
my
her.
American friends, that's dressing like a man.
Ah, yeah, sorry. In the English slang's coming through.
No, no, no. Let it fly. Let it fly.
At some point, we can have a debate over if it's aluminum or aluminium.
There you go. There you go.
um,
Tomato, tomato. You know.
what was that? But yeah, I don't know if she actually ever revealed her right. Obviously, she did at the end of her life because we know, Mary Read was Mary Read. Um,
Yeah.
but the fact that not only did she dress up as a guy and then lead a bunch of pirates, she did this successfully for a vast majority of her
Yeah.
pirating career, and no one clocked on. Like that's
Yeah.
skill.
Yeah. I guess it must have been the way she looked, or she wasn't very voluptuous,
Mm,
maybe. Because I do know like from what we know, pirates they they actually they didn't wear loose fitting clothes. They tried
no.
not to anyway because they didn't want it to get snagged on all the ropes and all the things like that. So for her to to go so far without anybody unless people recognize she was a woman and she paid him off, and just like, here, like, please don't say anything,
Mm.
or however, like, there's so many different things that could have happened, or she could have just it just could have ended their life. Hey, where's Pete? I fell overboard, I don't know. Like 2 hours ago, I don't know where he is.
He came into
So
my room and he just fell down dead, and somehow
yeah,
he decided to hang himself by being shot in the back five
I know.
times.
So, like, there was all types of, like, rumors and stuff, even with Anne Bonny, where she would sleep with the captain and things like that, and
Hmm.
not to have anybody say anything about her. But eventually, yeah, at the end of both their like at the end of Mary Read's life, she she was saved from the gallows because of she said she was pregnant.
Hmm.
But according to most history books, she died in prison because she got sick.
Yeah.
So some people say it was with the pregnancy, or like prison again. Prisons back then were not like prisons today. They just threw you in like a big hole, man,
Yep.
and it's just like, you got sick. Oh well, the doctor ain't coming. Man, we don't have enough food this week, so good luck. We're just gonna dump it in the prison. A lot of people died in jail, so
Yeah.
it's just that's just how it was. So and then Anne Bonny, there is like, man, there's like five different stories of her life. It's crazy to thinking about that. It's crazy to think that here we are today in 2023 talking about Mary Read and Anne Bonny,
Yeah.
right? Grace O'Malley's one thing because she established herself as a leader,
Yeah.
in
She's
history. There's
the pirate
statues made of
queen.
her,
Like
right?
she's known as
And
the pirate queen.
she's talked to the queen, things like that. But when you look at Mary Read and Anne Bonny, they were basically like runaways, like
Hmm.
basically like homeless. I don't know what to do with my life. I don't have anything here, and this is the only thing I know what to do, right? And I wonder if they would ever thought that some people would be talking about them here, so many years later, and curious about their life, and throughout history, the thing is true about history is stories get, you got to try to find the truth somewhere, because there are stories written about Anne Bonny that are just like, whoa, like you said, with Grace O'Malley with a gun in one hand and a baby
Yeah.
in another, um that turned her story into legend, the myth, and all that stuff. And then there's other stories that just have her just, well, she just hitched her wagon to this pirate and that pirate, and then she just faded away.
Hmm.
She went to Cuba or whatever. So, but the crazy thing is, Anne Bonny's story is the majority of stuff that I've read about her is that she ended up having a child in Cuba, and so there could be some kind of lineage there somewhere. That somebody could be related to Anne Bonny and not even know it. And then she ended up going back to the Carolinas or Massachusetts and just lived out the rest of her days, stealing and doing what Anne Bonny would probably do.
Yeah.
There's no record of her death, and if she were to have died on sea, at sea or in a prison in the Caribbean, there probably would never be a record. So, or if she just changed her, a lot of these people change their name 3 or 4 or 5 times
Mm.
to escape authorities. So that's why a lot of the records were lost. Thank God for the pride of some of these people like Blackbeard and Sam Bellamy and all them that wanted their name to be out there so they could be famous, that they didn't change their name. I mean, we talked about Stede Bonnet, the gentleman pirate. He changed his name as well near the end of his before he died, just to try to, to escape
I
uh,
I partially
imprisonment.
like the idea. A lot of my stuff around Anne Bonny and Mary Read comes from like I got into them because of like Black Flag. So
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
do like going like the ending that Anne Bonny gets in Black Flag, like off out of the game, where she literally just changed her name and then like she retired. She has a house in New York, I believe. Is how like and I like that version rather than like she died in a Spanish prison or somewhere like that. I
Yeah.
like the idea that she just sort of disappeared off and had a
Sailed
nice
off
life.
into the sunset.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like the traditional hero's ending.
But
But
still, it's just
sorry, go.
fascinating that we are still talking about these people
Mm.
years afterwards, and we just want to know their story. We want to know how what did happen to their lives. Did they have a did they have a moment and like come back to reality? Did Anne Bonny just settle down and get married somewhere and just lived out the rest of her life, on a farm somewhere where she has these like several years of like being a pirate with
15 years.
Calico Jack and bumping into Blackbeard and Hornigold and all these people? It's like uh it's wild, and she probably never would have thought that people would still be talking about her today.
I mean,
So
she was probably looking like a lot of them apart, other than like Sam Bonnet and like Blackbeard, who were looking a bit more on the fame side. She was probably originally just looking to survive. Whereas we see
I
this
agree.
story of a heroine, she saw day to day life of I need to eat.
Yeah, because Anne Bonny, she married a man and they went to Nassau, and then she quickly left him for Calico Jack, and but in between all that stuff, she was running around with different pirates according to certain historians,
Hmm.
and yeah, like just trying to survive, just trying to find her place, and it's just fascinating. Yeah, yeah, you just don't know what her motive was. Was she attracted to the adventure? Because like even when she was on like certain ships, there are many stories of when they would take over other ships, other merchants. It was either Mary Read or Anne Bonny that would she would take her shirt off and mesmerize the men. Like, oh, we got a redheaded woman. Like Anne Bonny was supposed to be from Ireland as well, and
Hmm.
and then the men just came and attacked and killed them all. While she
Yeah.
was like doing her thing as a woman to attract men to get them confused.
To be fair, that would be fairly effective. It's like, oh wow, redhead, like show me, and I'm dead. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
also,
So
B Man said someone needs to make a comic about them. Cough, cough, Jay.
yeah,
I
yeah, it's
saw that.
coming. It's coming.
That made me chuckle.
Here,
Um,
this is what it's called. So I do. I have a
nice,
I have a pirate book coming out next year. So that's going to involve some of these real pirates. Pretty
nice.
awesome.
And then maybe you can get a Hollywood deal, just not with modern Hollywood.
We'll just do
Yeah.
it ourselves. We will do it
Exactly,
ourselves.
exactly. That's the way forward. That's the way we need to do it. And
Yeah.
speaking of self sufficiency, my favorite male pirate, we will get onto the gentleman pirate and stuff like that. The ones I know a bit less
Okay.
about, but I do want to cover Edward Teach, Blackbeard. The
Okay, so you guys call him Edward Teach. Some people call him Edward Thatch. So he had two names.
I've
So
not
it all
heard the
depends on what
Thatch
what
name.
book. Yeah, it's whatever history book you read. So some people wrote it as Thatch, and the majority of people say Teach. So Edward Teach Blackbeard.
I wonder
Yeah.
where does Thatch come from. I wonder because I've always heard it as
Yeah.
Teach.
Yeah. There's two.
But that's
it's
the
it's it's interesting.
because
It all depends on, like I said, it all depends on what history book you read and
mm,
how they interpreted. Maybe that's just how they interpreted the last name, or he would change his last name in different areas just to avoid arrest. So no, I'm not Edward
yeah,
Teach. I'm Edward Thatch. I'm
yeah.
a different person, you know. So they that was pretty common that they did that.
I mean,
But we'll go with Edward Teach. Edward Teach is the most known.
yeah, especially over this side of the
Ah, yeah,
pond.
yeah.
Um, I mean, my favorite story with him is Blackbeard isn't. I mean, he did some horrific stuff, but he's like of all pirates, he did possibly the most anti-hero level stuff. Like he was always just off of being a good guy. Like
Almost, yeah.
my favorite story. There was a French slave ship and he took it with ease because it's Blackbeard, and he took it off and he freed all the slaves, and then he
Right.
captured the French ship and all the booty and was like I think he either executed the French or he like just took them prisoner. But instead of keeping the slaves free, he put them on an island for the French
Right.
to come and pick up. Because in his eyes, that was the good thing to do. And every time I hear it, I'm like,
Or
oh, we got out there a second. Oh, there you go. You're back.
was that me? Or that was you?
I don't know. It's
That was
probably
me, probably.
it's probably my internet's dodgy,
Probably me.
the dodgy. But
Probably a
where
angle.
did I cut out?
Where he left the slaves
Yeah,
for the French to pick
yeah,
up,
that was
right?
it. Like, because in his eyes, that was the good thing. That was the morally good thing to do.
Well,
Which
the interesting with Blackbeard with that is that his first, I guess the second one in charge was Black Caesar, an
interesting.
ex-slave. So if you don't know the story of Black Caesar was captured, and when he was on a slave ship, and while they were heading to the Caribbean, the ship hit a storm, and it busted up the ship, and like mostly everyone died except for Black Caesar and another crewman. And they became friends. They ended up going on this rowboat and going off into this island. Now on this island, they learned how to communicate and learn how to survive, and they saw like another merchant ship, like so they rowed out to them, and they realized that if they row out, they'll look like they're stranded, and the merchant ship would take them in, and he was vicious, and he just slaughtered every ship, and they did this for like a year,
Mm.
where he started to have a name for himself, you know, and they would row out, and the ship would be like, "Oh, we'll help you. Yeah, come on." And then he would just kill them and take the ship, sell the ship, and then do the same thing over and over. Well, Blackbeard got wind of this and invited him on his crew and put him second in charge. Not only could he speak the language to a lot of the slaves that were captured, but he was the guy that they're like, we need this guy to talk. Can you like just take him in the back and
Do
do
what you
what
do
you do?
best.
Yeah, it was rough. So I'm assuming that because Black Caesar was part of his crew, that Blackbeard had a little soft spot for that.
Mm.
So because it also has that he also had about I want to say like a fifth to tenth of his crew was from slaves as well. They stayed with him. So
I think that's why I one of the reasons I titled the not just for clickbait, but why I titled this episode of the podcast "Were Pirates the Good Guys?" because there
yeah,
is certainly some level of moral ambiguity to it. Like if you're an escaped slave and you want to escape the British or the French, whoever, depending on the time period, you're going to go to a pirate crew because they're going to be they're also on the run and they're going to be the safe
yeah,
haven.
that's correct. And if they were the good guys, I know William Kidd earlier on was looked at as a hero because he was one of the first ones that basically told the king, like, hey, up yours, I don't want nothing to do with this, like we're gonna do our own thing. And that at the time, with a certain group of people, that they looked upon this pirate as like, look at this guy, like he literally told the king off, and like he's not following the rules, and he's like got his freedom, and he's just until he got caught and he was hung in the courtyard for everyone to see. but there was such like people began to write books. That's when they started writing books about these pirates. Was William Kidd was one of the first,
Mm.
especially in this golden age of piracy, and he was looked at more of a hero than he was just a bad person. He was looked at as someone that didn't want to pay the taxes and didn't want to follow these rules and didn't want to do, all these things. And he's like, we need to stand up against that, and I'm going to stand up. And I don't think that was his overall intent, but how media and storytellings will grab some of these people's stories and just take it to a whole nother level. That's what happened with him. And then
Mm.
the other thing too is quite fascinating is that a lot of these pirates were, I don't know how you, even though they did some pretty bad stuff, they still went to church. It's like a lot of them were Protestants and Catholic, and they still held on to their faith in God at the time. And it's fascinating because the reason why captains would maroon people is because they wouldn't be held accountable for killing someone that was on their
Mm.
crew or things like that. So they wouldn't be held accountable towards God. Then what they did was another insult to pirates. When you were marooned, they gave you that one shot with a gun, and they knew that the person marooned would suffer because they didn't want to self-delete, because that would go against God, and they didn't want to do that. Even though they did all these terrible things that probably would be, they just still had this some kind of moral compass that they just that a lot of them held on to. I'm working on a video now for the channel about did pirates celebrate Christmas, and it's fascinating, like all the history we dig up that like what they did celebrate around Christmas time because of so many of them just
Well, religious
grew up in the
themselves.
Catholic Church. So
Mm.
yeah.
I, I think pirate celebrations, because I remember, don't know if you had it in the States. We had a TV show called Horrible Histories, and
Oh yeah, I know that. Yeah, I know that show.
we I remember growing up and the way they sort of humanized pirates in the end, because you grow up on like in book and stuff like that, and as a kid the pirate is always the bad guy, and seeing them like they would have a sort of form of drag shows, wouldn't they? Like just
Yeah.
regular celebrations, like to cheer each other up, and obviously they shared the food equally and stuff. Well, you know, whoever was in charge obviously got the lion's share,
Yeah.
but the they at the end of the day, I think what people forget is they were still people, and they were especially because Ed would teach. I believe he was another runaway, wasn't he? Blackbeard.
From what we know, again, it's all depends on what book you read.
Yeah.
it, it all depends, but no, you're absolutely right, because during that time, the pirates had their own code that were
Mm.
made up by ex-naval men. So you have to understand that. So it's interesting, especially in the golden age of piracy. A lot of these pirates were privateers first. So they had a letter from the king. They had a letter of marque, and they were allowed. So when England was at war with Spain, they were allowed to hunt down Spanish ships and sink them and keep whatever. And so that was the privateer life, right? It's like,
Yeah.
hey, we're at war. You see Spanish, we won't say anything if you hunt down the French either, to be honest with you. So it's like, take whatever you want. Here's a letter. You won't be prosecuted. It's legal here, and go out. And that was such a genius way for England to have a navy,
Yeah.
right? So naval men and everything else, they went out and they privateered. And then when the war was over, England was like, you guys got to stop doing that now. Like, and now you had all these people that didn't know what to do with their lives. They're like, I've been doing this my whole life. I don't know what to do. Like, where am I supposed to work? How am I supposed to make money? And that's what started this whole, especially like Sam Bellamy, who had, was in the service, and all these people that just started to go after any ship at this point. And so yeah, so they developed this pirate code that was more disciplined than some of the militaries at the time, and some of
Mm.
the states and cities at the time. It was like very disciplined. So they you signed a pirate's code before you entered the ship. It detailed everything, your duties, what you're going to get paid, and what the punishment is if you don't follow these rules. The crazy thing is probably 55% of the men that were on the ship couldn't read anyway, so they just signed it with an X, and they had to be told what would happen to them. And the crazy thing is that in these contracts, if you misbehaved or weren't doing what you were supposed to do, when they showed up in other cities and towns, they legally could sell you as a slave or a servant until you fulfilled your contract. So some of these pirates didn't matter like where they were from, what their skin color looked like, or anything. They were sold into like hard labor areas, mines,
Mm.
fields, stuff like that, and they were chained up like common prisoners and things like that until a few things happened that either they fulfilled their contract and they were allowed to go, or they ended up dying out there. So there was such a strict code that they had, and that's a lot of historians are fascinated that many of these pirates that they're the bad guys. They did whatever they wanted. They had a rough lifestyle. A lot of that is probably true.
Oh, my internet's gone again.
Very strict.
That's my internet went
So
again. Then I apologize.
oh
I
no,
apologize.
no, it might have been me. So
No, I always get people freeze up, and it's definitely me. It's just the brilliant
you silly Discord.
Discord for a
Oh.
one. Yeah, I need to figure out. I need to figure out a new
It's
podcasting
all
software.
good, man. It's all good.
But yeah, as you were
But
saying,
yeah,
like
like
when
that's the thing.
they're treated as the villains, when in actual, I mean, I believe it's very similar to like because my other like semi passion is middle like 1950s West End gangs in London. Um,
Oh wow.
and like the code they have, which people like to deny, but the Cray twins regularly broke, was you never touch women or children. And I believe that the
Yeah,
pirate code had a very similar like point, like
very,
do
very
not
much.
touch women or children.
Very much. Only under strict captain's orders or things like that. So
Mm,
yeah, there was definitely, even when they would fight other ships, there was like a strict code. That's one of the reasons why they didn't really want children or women on their boats either. So,
yeah.
but you know, the, things were just different. I mean, Sam Bellamy had John King, which is the youngest pirate in recorded history that died. So some people have him at 11, some people have him at 9.
Struth.
So
Wow.
he was he was the youngest one on his, and he became a pirate, this little kid, because he was on a ship and they were just traveling to the new world, and Sam Bellamy took over that ship, and he was like, I got nothing, like take me on, like I'll do whatever it takes, and Sam took him, and they had a role for him to do, but he
Sam
died
Bellamy
in a
was
storm.
the gentleman pilot, wasn't he?
No, that's Stede Bonnet. Sam Bellamy is probably next to Blackbeard. He probably should be the most famous. He had the biggest haul. He has like Sam Bellamy has one of the most interesting stories of all pirates.
Okay.
And so he was in Massachusetts. He was a privateer. He worked for the Navy, and then everything stopped, and he needed work. He fell in love with a woman that was part of a very strict religious church, and he ended up getting her pregnant.
Ah.
And at the time, at that day and age, that's a big no-no. So
Mm.
she was cast out of society, and she was like they were living in like this little pot of land that was just like massive poverty. And he's like, I'm gonna go make a fortune. I'm gonna come back, and you'll never have to live like this again. So he sailed out to go be a pirate for like a year, make a lot of money, and come back. And so he was doing this for love. Found the right people. He rubbed elbows with everybody, Blackbeard, all of them. He went to Nassau. He knew them all well, and he started from the bottom with small ships, and he ended up taking over the Whydah Galley, and that was the biggest pirate. That was one of the biggest pirate hauls of all time, and the ship was massive. It was filled with Spanish gold. It was just like it was a massive ship, and he took that ship over after about a year or so, and he was like, all right, I'm done, like I'm gonna go back to Massachusetts, and I'm like gonna get my girl. Now this whole time his girl was she was going crazy. She was starving. She gave birth to a child. The church came and stole the child away from her because they were like she was unfit to be the mom. and she had nothing, and so you were hoping that like Sam would show up, and
Mm.
like, what? Who did this to my woman? Like, let's go at, it's like that would be the perfect, and then he takes her and they sail off. Sadly, on his way back to Massachusetts, the Whydah Galley, they ran into a massive hurricane and it ended up killing Sam and dumping the treasure all over the place. And that was like one of the first major blows to pirate, because when the word got out that Sam died, because he was looked upon by so many as like one of the king of the pirates, it's like follow his lead, like he knows what he's doing, he's always there to help. That was a big blow. So he ended up dying in this hurricane. Then his girl apparently she just went crazy and just died in the streets, alone, and without anyone waiting for her man that never came back. So, and then
That's
then millions of dollars of treasure. They actually found the Whydah Galley and put it in a museum, like pieces of it and some of the treasure that was discovered
so. Was the treasure
recently.
like completely lost at sea, or is it?
A lot of pirates went to that crash and got a lot of it. So
Oh,
there was a
so
lot of scavengers over there, right? And so what they found for the museum is, it's been in the sea forever, so it's like they keeping it in like some kind of special sealed case in the water or something like that. It's
mm.
it's a unique museum in Massachusetts. Um, to go see. But yeah, they went, and when the word got out that that ship had crashed, so and so, a lot of pirates went up there to just try to find it, and scavenge it for themselves. So that gold was probably spread all over, all over the place.
It's a shame he didn't get because he had succeeded in doing what he had promised
He had
his.
succeeded, and he had a reputation, and he was quitting at the perfect time when the king decided to. The one thing that came crashing down on pirates, they didn't know how to get rid of pirates, right? England. So they did something so unique, something that was brilliant actually, that they offered a pardon. So they just said, okay, Blackbeard, all you guys, here's a pardon. Like, we know that you've been doing this. If you take the pardon, you can keep whatever you have. Just stop doing it. We're gonna open up the waterways again and get the trade going. Back and forth. And so many pirates took that pardon. They were like, man, I've collected a fortune here. I don't have to give it back. I'm not going to be persecuted. I can even go back to England if I wanted to and just
Hmm.
live a happy life. And it's like they took it. But Blackbeard took it like 7 times. Every time he got caught, he was like, oh,
Oh,
no, no, let me get, oh, there's a pardon I heard. Like, can I take that? And they're like, okay, here you go. From different governors. But Sam Bellamy would probably have taken the pardon. He would have had all that gold. He could have had like this beautiful life, out in Boston. And that would have been the end of it. But sadly, tragically, a pirate's life, man, it's a short one.
yeah.
It's like 2 years. If you make it past the 2 years, you probably will retire and disappear.
If
So, or
yeah,
that you're just dead.
it's like the great filter theory, but for pirates.
Yeah.
So do we know what happened to his kid, or did the kid just disappear into the history books?
The rumor is that the parents took the child and just raised it, um, without any knowledge of like what happened. So the strict religious communities that sprouted in America during that time. You remember they were burning women at the stake. Like these people were witches and stuff like that. It's such a wild time, you know. So
Yeah,
that's
no,
all we know.
we've still got the Amish running around as well. That's why
Yeah,
we can
that's
offend
true.
them. They're not watching this.
That's true. That's true.
It's my favorite. The second you said religious community, I was like, I've got to drop an Amish joke because it's the
Yeah,
easiest.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so we'll swing over to the Gentleman Pirate, and then any others you want to bring up, because I want to
Mm,
finish up on, um, perhaps have you got a hard stop? Are you all right to go for a little bit longer?
I'm good.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
I
yeah.
want to finish up on perhaps the most controversial pirate, which is Ching Shi or Zheng Sao,
Oh, yeah,
because
yeah.
she's after long after the golden age of piracy, but
Adam Chin. Yeah,
yeah, a lot of her story is disputed now. It's by the Chinese historians, which is
yeah.
which is what I want to dig into, because to me that's really interesting. But yeah, so the Gentleman Pirate how did you get a name of the Gentleman Pirate?
So you're talking about a man who now people lived the average lifespan back then was about 50, 55 years old. So they
Yeah.
didn't live that long. So middle age was about 25 back then compared to what it is today. And this was a guy who was very wealthy, probably a millionaire by today's standard.
Mm.
He was in Barbados. He had a plantation of sugarcane, and he was set. His family was rich, he was rich. He was married already and had several kids at probably about the age of 26, maybe younger. And he just had like a midlife crisis. He was like, I'm sick of my wife, I'm sick of my kids, I'm sick of this life. He took all his money and he read a lot of books, such as the book about William Kidd and all these other people that sailed the high seas. And I guess he just fell in love with, I need an adventure in my life. My life is boring. I go to rich people parties. I go and talk to the governor, like that's all I have. I have nothing else. So he took a lot of his money, went down to the local dock and bought a sloop. Had it rebuilt a little bit so it was faster and a little more elegant for his style. He did something that no other pirate's ever done. He went to hire a crew. They all laughed at him because they were like, "You know nothing about sailing." He was like, "Well, teach me." And he paid them in advance. He's like, "We'll pay you up front if you just hang out with me for like 6 months. Maybe I'll get this out of my system." So that's why they called him like and he spoke like a gentleman. He had proper English and he had all the proper, and he really wasn't trying to be violent. Well, he was very successful early because all he did was go up to a lot of merchant ships and just show his Jolly Roger flag, and they would surrender immediately. And he was like, "Man, this is easy. Like this is fun." Until a Spanish man of war ship showed up, and his crew was like, "Don't do that to them. Like these people will destroy us. You're talking about 100+ gun ship to your 12." And he's like, "Nah, nah, it'll be fine." Showed up, raised the flag, and they were like, "Are you serious?" And they just blasted that ship, and he almost died in the process. Well, the sloop was a lot faster. Those bigger ships, it takes a while for them to turn around and get them going. They're a lot heavier. The sloop just took off and headed to Nassau. And while he was in Nassau, a young pirate by the name of Edward Teach said, "If you give me your ship and give me your crew, I'll teach you how to be a pirate, while you heal up." And so he made a deal with Blackbeard, and that's how Blackbeard got his start. Until Blackbeard got his own ship called the Queen Anne's Revenge,
Queen Anne's such a cool name for a
and
ship.
they both sailed together for many years until Blackbeard turned on him near the very end. Um, when Blackbeard had enough wealth where he thought he was going to retire, he ended up sinking his own ship, the Queen Anne's Revenge,
Mm.
and abandoning Steve, the gentleman pirate, and his crew on some sandbar, and just like getting out at the very end. But and he was gonna I think he was gonna try to settle in South Carolina somewhere,
Do you,
but it didn't happen.
do
So,
you
but Steve died. He died. He got caught he got caught like 2 or 3 times, and he was able to talk his way out of it, saying because he was such a gentleman. And they were like, "How does this person speak so elegant? Like, how is he a pirate? If he's like, no, I have this, and oh yeah, I know this governor over there. Yeah, I know him, and I know his kids, and I know that." And they're like, "Does he know all these people? He's not a pirate. Let him go." Till eventually, the last time he tried to talk out of it, and it didn't happen, and he was done. So
do you believe the story that Blackbeard swam around the ship? Was it 3 times after they cut his head off? That's the famous story, isn't it?
that's that one. Yeah,
They cut his head off, and the headless body swam three
yeah.
times. Do you believe? I'm dubious of it. I've heard it repeated many times.
I mean, those sea stories back then, if you throw a headless body and the nerves are just still twitching,
Yeah.
it could mimic maybe someone swimming. It could mimic if the tide was right and the way the ship was. I mean, it could look like it. And then you have sailors that look down. You're talking about the same people that see mermaids, like out in the distance, and it's like, I don't know. I honestly don't
I
know.
think I think I, th-
So
I think you're right. There's some truth to it. Whether it was a perfect
yeah,
breaststroke around the
right.
ship 3 times is unlikely. I mean, talking about sailing stories, I kind of do believe some of the Kraken stories, like less the sea
Never know.
serpents, But the kraken, maybe not a like a giant squid or a colossal squid the size of a man of war, but for the smaller ships, like the
A
colossal
giant
squids we've
squid could,
like they're
yeah.
big.
And especially if they're throwing nets overboard and stuff like that, and they're just hauling it in, and a giant squid is in there and just goes crazy. Of
Yeah,
course, you're talking about men that are like, I can only imagine, what, like, how mentally strong you are if you're out on a boat for months on end, and you're all sleeping in a little hammock, day in and day out. A lot of times, this is crazy. A lot of times pirates and captains, they wanted men that admitted that they couldn't swim because that would keep them from mutiny, like, because it's like, well, if you disobey, I'll just throw you overboard. So it's
yeah,
like they purposely wanted people that can't swim. So you're talking about men that aren't bathing, that are probably, they're not, they're getting scurvy, which means they're not taking vitamins, so they're basically just eating bread or any fish that they might have caught. And and that's it. So there's disease, there's no going, taking a shower. The whole term was, I don't know if you hear this term where you live, but when someone says, I'm going to the head, which is another term of I'm going to the restroom, that came from like these pirate ships, because right in the front of the boat, the way it was designed, you would hold on to the front and you would go to the bathroom at the head of the boat, right? So it's like you're out here for months on end, you haven't seen a woman, the sun is hot, who knows how much water you're actually able to drink, and it's like you can only imagine like how mentally tired or challenged these men are, and what they might see out in that water, like what could happen. It's just, you never know. And then for them to have these stories, so you just never know. Like, the sea
and
is a crazy place. Like, have you seen videos of like these fishermen today that are out there in the Atlantic and the Pacific, like in the middle of the night, and it's like they turn their lights off, and it is just like as dark, and you
yeah.
hear the wind, and it makes a whistle sound and all that stuff. So, a lot of the stuff that we can answer today, they had no answer for back then. So
There's
yeah, you
stuff
just
that
you just never
there's
know.
there's videos that we know aren't fake, um,
Yeah,
of where because fishermen like and other seamen have corroborated it like in comments and stuff when these videos have been uploaded of like it's like nighttime and the VR, but they'll hear weird animal noises. Like obviously a
yeah,
lot of them you could just say oh it's an orca or something like that, but there's a lot of scientists who will just go oh no I ain't got a clue. I ain't got and like
yeah.
the I'm not saying oh Cthulhu's definitely real, like,
Sure, sure.
but there like we know so little about the oceans that
Exactly.
would it surprise me if there is some kind of mermaid type creature?
You
Absolutely
never
not.
know, man.
Do I currently believe so? Yeah, but I'm also, as you can tell from I have a video on the British Bigfoot, so I'm,
Yeah.
I'm clearly slightly more gullible to these sort of things, but
No, I
yeah,
mean, but yeah, you're right. You never know what.
yeah, I would never.
You're absolutely right. We don't know hardly anything about what's out in the ocean, and
Yeah.
you're talking about men in these thin wooden boats going
Mm-hmm.
from
Ah,
one continent across the ocean,
yeah.
and it's like you never know, and like with dolphin sounds and everything else that they hear out there, you never know. You never
I
know.
mean, it's like going on to dry land for a brief second. It's very similar to how like if you listen to a fox call in from
Yeah,
Scotland or wherever, especially if like bearing in mind there's this point like looking out your house, it's cold in the winter, you've got your candle, you can't see 4 foot in front of you, and the
yeah,
woodland is over there, and you just hear a fox call, and then over a couple hundred years, that's not a fox call, that's a banshee.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's easy to see how it evolves and to had to
yeah.
like to swing on the up before right before people accuse me of going completely cryptid and conspiracy to show on the other side of it. But do I believe in mermaids and stuff? No, well you will have everyone watching will have to keep watching my videos to see. Little shameless shilling, but no, it depends on the there's what's the phrase? There is truth in every story. That's the one.
Yeah.
It is my honest answer. But speaking of truth in every story, we'll actually. Is there any more pirates you wanted to bring up before we moved on to
Oh
Ching
no,
Shi?
those are good.
Um,
Those are the good ones.
the best of the best. So moving on, lastly to Ching Shi, who was perhaps the first pirate story I covered, who was tantalizing because she comes pretty much after the golden age of piracy. You think about it, she was battling like the East India Company,
Yeah.
um, which is hilarious to me. Like, because she got her start, depending on the story, she either was a prostitute or
Yeah.
she just worked in a prostitute house, and then a pirate came up, was like, I quite fancy you, and married her.
Yeah.
And then they adopted a kid. The main pirate died. Then she married the adopted kid, and then they went became had the largest fleet in the South
Yeah.
China Sea at one point.
Yeah. It's such a crazy, and she's one of the, according to, like I said, according to some history, she's one of the few that did all her piracy and retired and bought a brothel and
Yeah.
just hung out. And she actually, I think there's like the one last picture of her before she passed away. They had a photograph of her
Mm.
online that you could. And they just found her like she loved playing cards and smoking her cigarettes, like right when it was
Yeah.
all said and done. And it's like, if all these stories are true, you're one of the most fascinating people in the world right now. How did you do this? Again, especially in a day and age when women were looked and not as equals, as they weren't. It was hard for women to lead back then, but man, she with people followed her
Mm.
because she was always winning and she was growing her pirate kingdom, and no one messed with her. And whatever she said, that's how it went, and to the point where some of the stories was that the Chinese government actually came to her for help in certain instances, and she just always won, and to the point she's like, yeah, I think I'm done now. Uh,
I'm just gonna
Good luck
retire.
with your country. I'm just gonna retire, and the rest of you boys just sail around and do your thing. Like, I'm done. So I'm just gonna be here. Come visit, say hi every now and then. We'll have some tea, tell some old stories, and that'll be the end of it. But yeah, now you're right. Like, there's some people out there saying, she really wasn't as big as you guys make her out to be.
Mm. It's
So
it comes from I can't remember the name of the adopted son she married. Um, but the story is, from what I've learnt from speaking to um people from like East Asia, is he actually takes prominence in the stories above Ching Shi. And
oh
what I've like, there was a whole so the stories we have of Ching Shi, the way they want to debunk it, is saying that we've heard parts of the stories and there's no direct sources in China that mention Ching Shi, but they do mention I think it was Chang Sao.
yeah,
I've
yeah, I
almost
think
certainly
that's
got
her
his
name.
name wrong, but they do mention him and the original husband. My issue with that is you're talking about a culture that, like the Qing dynasty at that time, was
Hmm.
incredibly sexist. There's very if you look at how
Right,
few we have no women who became Roman empress. We have very few
right,
women who became monarchs in European history. In East Asian history, that number is even smaller. Like there
hmm,
very few women got into positions of power. In fact, it
right,
was very similar to the Ottoman system, where concubines would actually hold a lot of power because they would
right.
women unsuspecting, so they would be able to move stuff. Um, my argument is, I think the Chinese government at the time was so annoyed that a woman was going around and destroying all their stuff that they were going, oh, what's
Agreed.
got to be this guy? It couldn't be her. Um,
I totally agree. I agree with that statement 100%.
I mean,
So,
my favorite, like going on bouncing off of what you were saying with her negotiating toward, like when she negotiated with the Chinese government for her to retire, the biggest power move was she bought the wives of the other her of her crew and all of their children and just marched them up to the Chinese government and
yeah,
just went, okay, so if you want to like arrest us, these are all of the people you're gonna have to support and feed, and if you massacre us, like the entirety of China is going to know that you did it
Yeah.
because this is a massive public display, and they just went, yeah, here's your money, go and have like go
Yeah,
and
just kidding. That's what I think too. I think that it's an embarrassment on their country,
Mm,
and they would rather tell history their way, and not to have so much of an embarrassment. Again, like we talked about this before the show started, is that the crazy thing about history is that most of it's written by the victors,
mhm.
you know? So if you win a war, if you're like in charge, you write the history. You
Yeah.
know, you get the ones that write the history, even though it might be different, but you tell the tale that you want to tell it. You know, we were talking about Roman history before as well, and it's
Mm.
like, the Romans got to write their version, and that's the one version that most of us read anyway.
But we
As
know
far as like,
barely anything about Carthage because of the
right?
Romans.
Yeah,
Like the
crazy.
Romans said, we're going to wipe you from history, and
Yeah,
they pretty much did.
they did. And then, when the Library of Alexandria burned down under Nero, a lot of that, probably a lot of history is lost as well. Probably some stuff
Mm.
that we would probably find fascinating that we didn't know. Even though there were, I know there was another library, I think in Ethiopia or other that had a lot of like the same
Yeah.
teachings that were in Alexandria. But I think that, like, as far as history nerds like me, like that, when you understand like how significant that was for a lot of stuff, when that library burned down in Alexandria, out like tons and tons of history just lost. And then at that point, when people would bring it up, it's all through like storytelling. When stories are being passed down over and over and over again, they change. It's like it probably, to fascinate an audience or anything, it probably gets blown up a little bit,
Mm.
exaggerated here and there, so the history changes unless it's recorded history. So, there was no cell phones back then, and no one was taking selfies, and no one was, caught with a camera. So it's just by what we have. It's by what we have. So in Madam Chin, her thing, I think the country was very embarrassed that a woman was basically controlling everything
Yep.
and in charge of everything. And it was like, man, this makes us look dumb. And they probably felt like they were the laughing stock of the world. It's like, who is this woman like telling us everything? Like how is she the one making demands and we have to answer? Like, this is, and so to have that stricken from the record over and over again would, I guess, would make them look better,
Yeah.
in history.
You'd
It's hard
lick
to
the
say.
wounds. I mean, we know, like, I believe that the source we do have focus come from more. I believe it's Vietnam, because
Yes.
because she was fighting on behalf, like, because her crew was like her fleet was so. I think there was a red sail, a yellow sail, a black sail, and might have been green as well. Because the black sail, I know, rebelled at one point, and
Right.
like just got decimated.
Yeah.
Um, but they were so powerful that they were being hired like by
Yeah.
people to just, can you win this war for me at sea?
Yeah.
And I know, wasn't it she actually like going on about how embarrassed they were? Didn't she on land control like a good
Yeah.
chunk of South China, like southern China,
Yeah.
anyways, like through her networks?
No one messed with her.
Yeah,
And
she's
she just was
untouchable
in the right. She married the right person.
at the right
It's
time. Yeah,
almost like a Grace O'Malley situation too, because Grace O'Malley was married into, her husband was already
mm,
established as like the leader and of this network as well. And when he was killed, like, the people were just looking like, well, what do we do now? She's like, I got it. I know all the ins and outs. I know what I'm
yeah,
doing. I've been married to this man. I know like who's what. I know everybody's name. I know. Then they're like, well, okay. And I think it was the same thing with her. And she's just like, I got all the ins and outs. I got all the information you need. And if you stick by me, you'll be very rich. You'll be protected, and your families will do well. So it's like, when you offer that, and it's pretty tempting, So why would they not take that? And the thing is like she proved herself over and over at being successful. And yeah, anyone that rose up against her, they were wiped away from history, man. They just turned into ashes.
And
Pretty wild, man.
we'll finish off on Ching Shih with perhaps my favourite fact better is like going full circle, much like Grace O'Malley, when she retired into her brothel, allegedly, I know this one isn't confirmed, allegedly, her network stayed open. And during the Opium Wars, she was trading in opium and bringing it into China.
I believe it. I believe it.
And I
It's
think,
almost.
sorry,
No, I agree with you. It's almost like they didn't know what else to do. You know, it's like the- it's hard for people to retire from what
mm,
the only thing they know how to do, especially in a time where if you had wealth, like it was physical and it was like, what did you bury it in the sand? Like, is it in your mattress? It wasn't like the banking systems, and all that stuff that we have today, where you can build up a 401k or whatever, stuff like that, and just take it out every month. But it's when things start to get little low, I could easily see her just, yeah, no problem. I could do that. I mean, she ran a brothel. It's like and she was probably like one of the most successful brothels at the time as well. So how easy would it be for her to like, hey, I know you got this brothel and a lot of men come in and out of here. It's like, can we get some drugs going in here too? It's like we'll give you a little extra. Why not? No one's gonna bother me. So
exactly,
a little extra money here and there.
it's the old homage of no one suspects you if you do it in plain sight.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I totally agree with that. I don't think it's hard for me to see these people like we go back to some of the pirates that we talked about. So many of them had enough wealth and a free ticket to get out. Blackbeard as well. Blackbeard had the pardon. He had a place in South Carolina here in the States. It's just as simple as, here's my pardon, I'm out. I could sell my ships and I could live the rest of my life comfortably,
Kept coming back.
And they just kept going back. The gentleman pirate as well. He had an out. He was released from jail. The pardon was in his hand. He was a multimillionaire. He could have gone back to his family. Would they have been mad? Of course, he'd have to deal with all that nonsense and everything, but he had an out, right? Like and he could have lived a comfortable life the rest of his life. So these they had ways of getting, but it just kept drawing them back in. They got addicted to the excitement. They get addicted to the money. They get addicted to all that stuff, and they just couldn't let it go. So it wouldn't surprise me if Madam Chen like did the same thing. It's like,
Mm.
all right, now what do I do? I'm just sitting around all day, like smoking in my pipe, and playing cards. Is like what do I do now?
She
And it's
needed
like,
that
hey,
thrill. I,
yeah, it's like a dopium hit. You know what I mean? It's just like it's like boom. It's so, and especially probably like running drugs through like the brothel is probably an easier thing than like taking down armies. So,
well, I think she
but
did
it's
it the
still
smart
it still
way.
made her feel, yeah, it still probably made her feel a little dangerous. So yeah, it's hard for these people to let go. So I believe it. I personally believe it.
I think definitely like if anyone's gonna retire, like you say, it's a lot safer to just deal drugs inside a brothel because
Yeah,
like she's not retiring, she's below the radar, so she's still on.
yeah,
Or you take the. I mean, there's a good likelihood that Anne Bonny did something similar. She just changed her name. Like
yeah.
the unless we have records of people specifically dying, I feel like
Right,
they did the smart thing and they because if once you've finished that life, you can't really keep the same name unless you went out with the pardon. So
right.
I don't know. I like to think there's a happy ending for some of these people, but to end off, we've been.
I'm sure
So,
I'm sure there is a happy ending for a few. We just won't know. We'll just never know. It's like a lot of speculation. Um, there's trying to think if there was, but the fun ones that we all talk about, their ending. Pirate life is about 2 years,
yeah,
and it usually it's 2 years too long. If they went out pirating for a year, then they probably could have maintained enough wealth and just disappeared either in the Caribbean or in the new country, in America, and paid off a governor. Governors, see, that's the thing too. It's like when England put governors in these towns,
All corrupt. All corrupt.
yeah, I mean, they took money off the side too, and you're talking about governors who welcomed pirates because while they were waiting for England to bring in their ships with goods and stuff, they were like struggling. So when pirates came in and they're like, you can get sugar here and resell it. We'll give you sugar for, like, I'm just throwing a number here. Like, you can get it here for $1 and sell it for 5, because we stole it from Spain. Then of course they're gonna welcome pirates into their town,
Yeah.
because now their town is starting to flourish because of thieves, of them stealing stuff, and they're not paying the top dollar for like the sugars and spices and the goods and all that stuff. They're paying like way below market. So,
Because the Spanish would have
it,
been overselling it to an English colony, and so if a pirate turns up,
of
it's like, well,
course,
we've got a load of this sugar, and we can't really sell it to anyone else, and you guys need it, so like,
yeah,
you take it. We're gonna make a profit because we literally haven't spent any money making the sugar.
that's exactly. And so like Nassau, and that's why Nassau was like, it just thrived because people knew like that Nassau and Tortuga and places like that, like they thrived because it was like, hey, we can go there and get cheap stuff, and it's like we don't have to. It's cheaper than starting your own plantation and getting people to work the fields and all that stuff. It's like it was
Mm.
cheaper than that. So yeah. So a lot of these governors, they just looked the other way and just took their little share of it. You know. So especially the governor in South Carolina, he was like the guy that he had a deal with Blackbeard. He's like, bring all your stuff here, I'll take care of it, and you won't be in trouble. So, and then he ended up getting caught and killed when the government finally showed up, and they're like, "What the heck is going on over here, man? Like, what is all this stuff?" And they're like, "We know you don't have all this kind of money, so, you know."
It's like we definitely weren't supplying you with this much wealth to
Yeah,
start this colony.
exactly. It's just like it's just like, what is going on here? Like something's fishy going on here. And then, and he just came out, and so the governor was arrested, and he was hung as well. And it's like, what a crazy life, man.
Is that there is a very common pattern for anyone who got into piracy or was involved with piracy. It very much ended one way. But
Mm.
like I say, I mean, I was going to go in briefly into modern piracy, but it's kind of a very different feel. Like modern pirates are completely different to the Golden Age, and even like as late as Qing Shi. The pirates now aren't really like they're not looking for a booty. They're just attacking civilian ships.
The I think the latest is like the last thing was a movie that came out about American Captain Phillips,
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
which kind of like highlighted the pirates off the continent of Africa. And you know that's I mean, it's the same thing. They come aboard your ship with guns and just like, we're gonna take all your stuff,
Yeah.
and but how that ended pretty tragically
Yeah.
for the pirates, when they didn't realize, like, maybe we shouldn't go after American ships because we'll get shot. So that that was the last kind of big thing that shed the light on like modern day pirates, but they're still out there.
Mm.
They're out there. Like, you'll hear news reports and just different things of like local fishermen out in the states where, people like a bunch of a bunch of people with guns just pull up on a boat and just rob them, and then just leave. Nothing to it. Like, destroy their systems or whatever it is, like destroy their motors, and just take all their cash and just get back in their boat and leave.
I
It happens all the time, because like it's not like you're gonna call the police and they're gonna drive out there immediately, And if you're out, an hour away from shore, and you got your anchor out and you're just fishing, like it can get scary. It's like, how do you know, like, someone in a faster boat's just gonna pull up real quick and and hold you up and just say, give me everything you got. But I don't think there's that much profit in it, much like it used to be, because a lot of people are smart to, they're not going to carry a briefcase full of cash out on a fishing boat, you know? So, so there's that.
Do you think we'll ever return to I'm gonna quote Treasure Planet here, but do you think we'll ever return to like the massive pirate ships, like, you know, going
Uh,
into space, or even with like modern naval vessels if the
yeah.
world goes great? Do
Uh,
you think we'd ever return to that, or do you think the golden age of piracy is gone?
yeah, I think there's just too much technology now. If there was a ship out there causing havoc, like some government could literally just push a button and just
Just take it out after a while.
erase them from erase them from the world. You know, it's just there's just too much satellite technology to track people and you know yeah, and just find them if it was that bad. But if if anything, it'll just be it, every now and then some guy will some maybe some person, not just some guy, will get courageous or desperate, and he'll get a little name for himself for attacking small fishing vessels, you know, here and there. And but once the like it's like once the report goes out that someone's robbing fishing boats in this area, like the satellites and everything, it just gets so heightened, like you'll get caught.
Couldn't do
You
it.
know, it's just a different, it's definitely a different time.
But space pirates in the future. You didn't say no to space
That's
pirates.
true. That's true.
Space
You
pirates.
never know, man. I think pirating, the term like to be a pirate now is, there's so much, it's so broad. You know, every time
Yeah.
you watch a movie you didn't pay for, you've become a pirate, you
Yeah.
know, an internet pirate. So it's like there's a little pirate in all of us, you know?
That's brilliant. That should go on a t-shirt. That's a bit. You need to put that on
Yeah,
some merch. There's a
there
little
really
pirate in all of us.
there
Um,
really is. There really is. So,
but I think
you know,
that's actually a really heartwarming way to end it. I think we'll end it with
yeah,
there's a little pirate in all
yeah,
of us.
definitely.
Unless there's anything, any other pirates you wanted to cover that we've not covered, or
Ah, no, man, I enjoyed it. I hope you invite me back.
oh, 100%. That would
Next
definitely.
time I gotta bring you. Next time, oh, I gotta get you on my podcast, our pirate
I'm
podcast.
always up for that. I'm always up for
We'll
that.
find you know, next year, like we'll find someone that you're really fascinated in, and we'll get the whole crew, and we'll all just have a. I don't
Yeah,
know what time that would be for you. So it's
I've
7 p.m. Eastern American.
yeah, that
So
I'll be up for that. I'm always up late. And after this, I'm going to write script on Yule and stuff because of my
I see. Wait, on your last video though, you talked about a pirate, an American
oh,
that
John Paul Jones,
yeah,
the
like
last live streamer. Yeah.
we dropped a video on that as well. So at the same time, that's kind of interesting.
Oh, really?
So
You did it the same weekend as me?
I dropped a video on that, and you talked about it the very next day, and I was like, "Oh, this is so cool! Like he's actually getting a little like recognition." So
Yeah,
it's
no,
pretty cool.
I didn't know because that episode came out was originally it was going to be Boudica, and then the guest dropped out, and so I messaged Aidan Thornbury, the other half of the Lawn Lodge, and I was like,
Mm.
I need someone now, and I don't have anyone to like next week, and he was like,
Oh man,
I
I
do
would be
John Paul Jones.
happy to hook you up with like other people from our history podcast. They would love to be on.
I'm
If you
always
ever
looking for
needed a
guests.
guest. Yeah, yeah, I'll send it to you when the show's done. Like they
Yeah.
will are you on Twitter? Are you on
I am on Twitter. I don't promote my Twitter as much because I always say to
Okay,
people,
no,
no, it's
we'll
fine.
do
No,
it afterwards.
my Twitter is public, but I always say to people, I'm like, follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube if you like
I hear
funny.
you.
But if you want to hear my opinions on stuff, you go to Twitter. And my Twitter, mine and Aiden's Twitter is unhinged. we, yeah.
Yeah, I hear that.
Right.
I hear that.
Listen, Elon took it over. It became the Wild West again, and I just went, "Well, sod it. I'm gonna make use of it." I haven't been banned yet. I'm trying to. I joked with one of my friends recently. It's like I'm seeing how far I can push it before I'm cancelled, and then I can use being cancelled to get popular, which is my plan.
Yeah.
Um,
Twitter is such a wild place, but it's there's a lot of like we use it for like group messaging and stuff like
yeah.
that. So we have all these little chats here and there. So,
I don't actually. Did I put that this video is going out? Because my Twitter is small, so it doesn't matter if I forgot. I did forget to put it on. I'll
it's
put it
all good.
after.
I tweeted it out. I
Oh, cool,
tweeted it
cool.
out. So people probably find it.
Yeah, you massively beat me on Twitter. I've only got like 100 followers on Twitter because
It's okay.
I don't promote Twitter at all. I probably should start promoting it a bit more. But then again, it's not as easy to get. Well, I have to pay to put
Twitter
content on there.
is a cesspool of disgustingness, and it is designed for people to fight
Yeah.
and argue and trash each other. And so, if you understand that, if you understand that, then you could use Twitter. I'm at the point now where Twitter is like that's just where that honestly that's where the fastest information comes, especially
Yes.
for um especially for pop culture stuff. But the more we do history and things like that, it's
I know a lot of like because I do know. I mean, I know a couple of guys that probably come up want to talk to you as well that I could probably like send you forward. In fact, I might.
oh, I
I'll,
love it.
I'll talk to you about it after the show because there is a group chat I can't talk about publicly, but that I might get you into. But
I love it. And I'd like to make an announcement if you don't mind before we
yeah,
close.
go for it, go for it.
Um, if you like history and if you want more of the not so pleasant history, there's the channel already exists, but me and a few people will be uploading a lot of content on that. Some in December and some in January, and I'm really gonna push it a lot more, probably mid-January, February. But if you want early access and you just want to subscribe to it now, just go to Horrid History, and we have like 76 subscribers. The welcome video's up there right now, and so yeah, that's you can go find it, and that is not for the faint of heart. I don't know how YouTube's gonna like it. We're gonna try to keep it as clean as possible, but like as far
Still,
as try to get through like some of the stuff, but
do you want me
there's a
to
lot of
if you
interesting
send me the
history out
link
there
on
that
Discord, I can put the link in the chat if you want.
oh, I appreciate that. There you go. Yeah.
Mm.
So if you want to yeah, I put it in our chat. If you want if that interests you, if it doesn't interest you, no worries whatsoever. But
Um,
yeah, I'll have to get you to do a video to on
Oh,
that channel.
I'm
Like
up for that. If
yeah.
there's anything I love in life, it's listening to myself talk. I've got
Ah,
that.
dude, I love it.
I've got that ego.
We'll take care of the editing. You just need to like voice it. Like if there's
Yeah,
like some crazy story that like we're gonna go over just like there's just like bizarre, strange, horrific history out there. Like these stories out there that you won't find in your normal history book if you go to school.
I mean,
So
if you've got
gonna be
like the
cool.
story you told me before the show, like stuff like that, that's gonna be. I think
Yeah.
you're definitely gonna have an interesting time with you. I mean, I think a few weeks ago we was trying to do a video on Guy Fawkes, who's a little hero of mine. We was like talking about how obviously he was a religious hero, and now like he's very much like one of the few things I'm open about politically is I hate every government, and I feel like this like
Yeah, yeah.
when you get into history, that's kind of a view you get. I know so many people in history. Like I got into history and now I don't like government. But I was like,
Yes.
but it's
Same way.
it's you can't get into history and not after like
I'm telling you. You're
it's like
100% correct.
every like about 70%, and then the remaining people who are still okay with it all become academics. Absolutely
Yeah.
no correlation, no
Yeah.
correlation there whatsoever.
That's so funny. I feel the same way.
Yeah. But
That's
before we
pretty
get in too much trouble, is there anything else you'd like to plug before we disappear?
No, that's it. Hey, I appreciate it. I'm definitely gonna return the favor. I'd love to get you on the Pirate Podcast, and we'll pick a character, and I'll reach out. I
I,
really appreciate it. I love this stuff. Like pop culture gets old quick because it just stinks right now. So
mm,
this was refreshing, man,
well,
and I
the
really appreciate the
new
invite.
Fallout trailer came out. That looks okay.
Yeah, but you want to know what happens like when you start like creating like the mini movies for the Pirate Channel and the other History Channel, and like I'm writing books and stuff. It's like those things become less interesting.
Mm,
It's like modern day entertainment becomes less interesting, and like I'm like here I'm excited about reading like horrible tragedies that happen to people, you know, and it's like, oh, I can't wait to talk about this one. Like this is pretty wild.
And
So
I mean, the last video I did, like before, like obviously before the last live stream, because the next video I have out, I'm currently still writing the scripts, and I know it's not going to be out like around Christmas. Um, like, because I'd like to do every 2 weeks, but I realised this is too much work and it's gonna be a big one. But the video I did
yeah,
before that was on the Knuckle V, and like reading about the Knuckle, like this obscure legend from
yeah.
Orkney Islands. I was like, this is so cool. And then even even simple stuff. Like I think
I'm telling you,
my favorite figure
no, you're.
my favorite figure to research was St. Olga of Kiev. I fell in love with her as a
I'm telling you, the day will come where Hollywood or some studio is gonna look to historians to like, hey, give me a good story. Like, I know they're out there.
yeah.
Like, tell me a good story. How do we make a film? You know, and it's just as simple as sitting down with one and being like, well, let me tell you about this person, and boom, 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 boom. It's like, that's real. Yeah, it's real.
It's gonna
It's
come.
like it's already written. It's already written for you. It's like it's already there. You know, like here's your next hero. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's already there.
You
So pretty wild.
don't even need to do some convoluted multiversal plot. We have it's literally interlinked. We can you do a video, you do a film on Blackbeard. You're gonna do
Yeah,
a film on the Gentleman Pilot. You do a film on Grace O'Malley. You're gonna do a film on Mary Queen of Scots and Elizabeth the First.
it's
Like
easy, man. It's right there.
you want to do a film on the Romans, you do one on the Greeks. It's there.
100%.
I
100%.
mean, you'd think
And
Hollywood
all
would be
these
all
little
over
stories
ancient
in
Greece
between,
at the
you know.
moment. Sorry.
Yeah. No, yeah, and there's all these little stories in between,
Hmm,
you know, of
exactly.
heroes and people that that led rebellions and stuff that don't get any credit or anyone talks about, but their stories are out there, you know, and even stories of people that have become martyrs, but ended because of their what they stood for and believed in. They saved like their family and stuff like that. They're all out there, man.
Yep.
There's so many of these amazing stories of people doing the right thing and changing the world, at least the world that they lived in, and they're just
Exactly.
not being told. And it's like they're so fascinating if people would take the time and just, it's like you could see this and you could put this together, and it's like this is pretty cool. Like this is better than what Hollywood's putting out right now. So
Exactly.
it's all there, man. It's all there. But
It's
again,
right there.
thank you to your audience. Thank you to everyone like
Yep.
who came out. I really appreciate it, and thank you to for those that subscribed over to the other channel. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and
That's pretty
yeah,
awesome.
make sure guys as well. All the links to all of
The
Jay's
history of
stuff is
pirates,
in.
man.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
all down.
that'd be
I've got
pretty
History of
cool.
Pirates and your main channel down there, and I think I've got.
I appreciate it.
I don't know if
Thank
I
you.
put your book down. I think your book's on the link tree, isn't it?
Yeah, Linktree is fine.
Okay, cool.
So that's perfect. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no. So make sure you go over and subscribe to all of Jay's stuff. And yeah,
I appreciate
thank
it.
you for coming on and giving up your afternoon. And to
No
everyone
worries,
watching,
man.
I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Take care.
The little